talk about a week, right? Israel's got their hands full war on two fronts, the whole world's watching, and now their closest allies giving ultimatums.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know the situation, Israel's been in conflict for a while, but when things went south in Lebanon, well,
Right.
let's just say even their allies are starting to sweat. And you know what's at the center of this whole mess?
Let me guess.
Humanitarian aid to Gaza.
It's always something, isn't it?
Oh, it's like Israel controls pretty much every way in or out, right? And recently, they've been making it even tougher for aid to get through. Can you imagine having to make that call, knowing that people's lives depend on it?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those things. It's such a complex situation. I mean, you got to look at the history, the politics, but at the end of the day, it's the human cost that really matters.
Right.
People are suffering, and that's why the whole world's watching so closely.
And then the U.S. throws down the gauntlet, right? Like, get this aid flowing in 30 days, or we cut off the military aid. That's a big deal.
Huge. And it's not just talk. They've got the law on their side. There's this rarely used thing, almost forgotten about, that says if a country is messing with U.S. aid, the arms shipments stop. So are they going to play that card? They're serious.
It makes you wonder why Israel seems to actually be listening this time. I mean, usually they just, I don't know, brush it off.
Good point. It might be the pressure cooker they're in, you know? It's not just the U.S. breathing down their neck. It's like almost all their Western allies are getting vocal. It's a whole chorus of, not cool, man.
Speaking of not cool, can we talk about France for a second? Macron did not hold back, straight up criticizing what Israel's doing in Lebanon, even saying to cut the arms shipments. Was that a big deal or what?
Big deal. It was huge. I mean, Macron calling them out is one thing, but he basically reminded Netanyahu that Israel exists because of a UN decision, not a subtle move. It's like he's reminding them they're walking a tightrope, relying on the world's goodwill.
And Netanyahu went right for the jugular, huh? Saying Macron's comments were disgraceful, even bringing up World War II. Like, whoa.
You don't say that lightly. Public spats between world leaders are never good, but throwing those hysterical comparisons around, there's some serious tension, and it shows just how high the stakes are right now.
And if things weren't spicy enough, the UK jumps in, right? Like, hey, we're with them on this whole more aidless fighting in Lebanon thing. Everyone's on the same page suddenly.
Yeah, it's not just a couple of countries raising eyebrows anymore. When the UK joined the chorus, that's when you know the pressure's really on. Could be a sign things are changing, you know, like how the world reacts to all this.
So Israel's stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? The U.S. is breathing down their neck, France is giving them the cold shoulder, and now everyone wants a piece of this. Where do we go from here? What are the options?
Well, they could buckle under pressure.
Give in, you mean? More aid to Gaza, maybe chill out in Lebanon a bit.
Could be. But there's always a but, isn't there? Israel's whole thing is they think Hezbollah is a real threat. Looking weak isn't really an option for them.
So if they back down now, their enemies might just, I don't know, get bolder. Like it's a free pass for more violence.
Exactly. It's a gamble either way.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they could just say thanks, but no thanks to everyone, and stick to their guns. Even if it means their allies, even the U.S., are ticked off.
But that's, I mean, that's risky, right? They depend on the U.S. for so much, especially military stuff.
Risky is an understatement. But they might be thinking, we're too important, especially with everything going on in the Middle East. They need us.
It's like relying on a friend for a huge favor, but then having a huge fight with them about something you both care about. You need them, but you're not going to back down. Tough spot for Israel.
Yeah, no kidding. They're in a tight spot, that's for sure. And it's hard to see an easy way out.
So we've got two paths, both kind of scary in their own way. Is there like a middle ground here? Can they make everyone happy?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, this conflict, it's like trying to unscramble an egg. There's never been an easy answer.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try, right? People have tried to talk peace before. Maybe, just maybe, this whole mess might actually get people back to the table.
It's a long shot, that's for sure. Years of not trusting each other, bad blood. But you got to have hope, right? Even the smallest chance is better than more fighting, more pain. And I can't forget about the people caught in the middle of all of this.
It's easy to get lost in the politics, the big picture stuff. But it's people's lives we're talking about. Millions of them, living in fear, not knowing what tomorrow brings. That's the real tragedy here.
It is. For Israelis, it's the constant threat. You know, rockets could fall at any moment. Imagine living like that. Schools closed, businesses shut down, and the stress. You can't even measure it.
And on the other side, the Palestinians in Gaza, they're facing a whole different kind of nightmare.
Right. It's like they're living a whole other kind of fear.
It's easy to forget about that side of it, isn't it? When you're the one living under the threat of rockets.
Exactly. But in Gaza, it's beyond dire, blockaded for years.
Yeah.
Imagine not knowing if you can feed your family, if you'll get medicine when you need it.
That's just, I don't even have words. It's like this conflict has them trapped and there's no way out.
And with this latest flare-up, it's a humanitarian crisis, plain and simple. Things were already awful, and now...
It makes it crystal clear, doesn't it? This isn't some political chess game. It's people's lives, families, kids, stuck in this cycle of violence that never seems to end.
And that's the thing, that cycle,
Mm-hmm.
it creates so much trauma. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like how do you even dream of peace when you've lived through that?
So where do we go from here? Is there any hope for things to get better? For both sides.
Finding a solution. It's like untangling the world's biggest knot. Everyone's got to come to the table ready to listen, to really understand what the other side has gone through. Empathy, they call it, right? And they got to keep talking even when it hurts.
Easier said than done after all this time, right? All that mistrust, the anger.
Sure. But haven't there been times throughout history where people said peace is impossible, and then it happened? Diplomacy, they call it.
It does give you a sliver of hope, right? Those moments where things actually change.
Those are the moments we have to hold on to. They remind us that even when things seem completely hopeless, humans can choose peace. It's in us somewhere, even if it's buried deep down.
It's a future worth fighting for, that's for sure, no matter how hard it gets.
Absolutely. Because the alternative. More violence, more suffering. We can't accept that. For ourselves, for our kids, for the future,
Yeah.
we have to keep striving for peace.
This whole deep dive, it's been eye-opening, really. We've gone from these huge global power plays down to the human cost, the everyday struggles. It's a lot to take in.
And as you keep following this story, remember those individual stories, those hopes, those losses. That's what this is really all about, and that's what should drive us all towards a better future.
This is The Deep Dive signing off. Thanks for joining us, and remember, keep asking questions, keep learning, keep digging deeper.